The main reason why I wanted to quit smoking was my grandson. I wanted to be around to really enjoy him by taking him to the beach and doing all the other fun things that grandfathers do with their grandsons.
Almost all our health by effect of our behavior, to break an old habit or take up a new one. George Palacio is keeping a diary to help him quit smoking. He is one of 48 million people in this country who want to break the cigarette habit. There are another 80 million people who are trying to lose weight, and perhaps 10 million more who would like to reduce their consumption of alcohol. Not to mention those who want to learn how to relax, quit working day or night, sleep without pills, cut down on coffee, stick with exercise, or simply eat less salt. But George is different, because he is likely to succeed where many of the rest of us would fail. Although he will certainly have setbacks, he has an important advantage. He's learning the concrete skills that it takes to make a permanent change, rather than relying on luck and willpower. With these skills, change is possible. Unfortunately, we see so many people fail that we come to believe that we're locked into a certain disposition or way of being right from birth. But in fact, most of our behavior is learned. We aren't born smoking, drinking too much, or overeating. We learn these habits, and we never lose the capacity to learn new behavior.
In the last year, I lost over 90 pounds, and I've been overweight almost all my life. And it's really exciting to be able to keep it off.
I was not very active in high school, in sports or anything, but I know that when I exercise, I feel much better about myself. More ambitious, energetic, less depressed.
These people didn't just change automatically, or by chance, or by making some vague resolutions. They changed by doing, by taking action. The rest of this film will be devoted to an approach to changing behavior that is based on doing. This is a behavioral method, a systematic step-by-step process. This method puts you in charge. Others may help, but ultimately you're responsible. And that responsibility begins with your own motivation.
I decided to really focus my motivation and make a list of the reasons I wanted to lose weight. My first reason was health. My father had been grossly overweight, had many illnesses, and I was going right down that same path. And let's face it, the second reason was vanity. I wanted to look good.
There is no magic method for changing behavior. If we're not motivated, no procedures will do it for us. One of the things that we sometimes notice when we're not motivated is that our reasons for wanting to change may be vague, or they may place responsibility on other people.
I guess I'm getting a little overweight, and the doctor says it's a little harder than my heart.
I'm sure I'd be better off if I drank less. I suppose it's been long enough that I should be able to get along without the tranquilizers.
I think after vacation, I'm going to really start trying to walk after lunch.
My husband's always after me to stop smoking.
Now at this point, you're probably thinking you're either motivated or you're not motivated, and there's not much you can do about it. That's really not true. There are some specific things you can do to motivate yourself. Try talking to some friends who've made the change you're thinking about. Find out why they're glad they did. Try using the milestones in your life as times for making changes. Birthdays, anniversaries, having a baby, or perhaps just going on a vacation. All these may be good target dates for changing. Finally, and very important, make a list of the reasons for changing and for not changing. Actually sit down and write out over the next couple of weeks what are the pros and cons of what you're thinking of changing.
The first thing we did after we joined the Fit Not Fat program at the hospital was to write down our reasons for wanting to change, to lose weight. I didn't face them until after I wrote down the reasons and saw it on black and white. In my case, what was really important to me was the way that I felt about myself. I have two younger sons that are very active and like to play softball and ride their bikes. And when they'd ask me if I'd want to come along, I was embarrassed to get on the bike and ride behind them or go play ball with them. My husband would give me looks like comparing me to someone else. If Lori could lose 15 or 20 pounds, she'd look better and she'd feel better. And those were all the feelings I had. People don't have to come out and say those things. You can see it in their eyes.
Right. Basically, that's the same reason why I joined the program. I'm very sensitive about my weight, and I don't like to take a teasing. I've started to get involved in community projects. I've started working full-time up at the Wisconsin Lions Camp, and when I see these girls walking around in swimming suits and shorts, and to think that 12 years ago I wore the same thing that they did, and here now I'm walking around with a lot more extra weight and extra clothing. My main reason is to get back into those clothes again and to feel good about myself and my appearance.
Another way in which writing things out can help is to make a formal written contract with your spouse or with a friend or just with yourself. It'll give you something specific to shoot at, as well as making it a bit harder to go back on your intentions. However, even with clear reasons and a written contract, another major obstacle is denial. We tend to minimize the extent of our bad habits.
I am not a big eater. I seldom eat breakfast, I seldom eat lunch. I eat like a bird. For a fellow my size, I don't eat much at all.
One very good way of breaking the pattern of denial is to keep a written diary of your habit.
Through the use of a daily diary, you keep records of what we call baseline data. In other words, you try to get an accurate picture of your current behavior before you change anything. Here's a way to set up a typical page in your notebook. The purpose is to actually count the number of calories, cigarettes, drinks, chocolates, cups of coffee, tranquilizers, or minutes of exercise in a day, or whatever it is you're trying to change. For example, suppose you want to set limits on the amount of alcohol you consume. In this column, you would note the time of day, 12 noon, and how many drinks you had, 2. The activity might be lunch with a new acquaintance. Under mood, write down how you felt at the time. Anxious to get off on the right foot. Now, what were the consequences of the 2 drinks? You felt less inhibited on the positive side, but too sleepy after lunch on the negative side. Keep this initial record for at least a week before you try to change anything. The next step is to figure out why you do what you do. Review your diary for the basic patterns of triggers and consequences. Triggers are the sights, sounds, smells, or situations which precede your behavior and seem to automatically trigger it. For example, you may find that turning on the TV is a powerful cue which triggers the behavior of walking over to the refrigerator to find a snack even though you just ate dinner.
Anybody hungry?
Yeah.
Consequences follow your behavior. If they're positive, they reinforce the action, making you more likely to repeat it. When you exercise and feel good, you're more likely to try it again. If you're like most people, a review of your diary for triggers and consequences will probably turn up some surprises.
One of the things I was surprised to find out after I had kept a diary for about 3 weeks was that I ate as many calories or more while I was preparing the meal as I did when I finally sat down to the meal, which is probably why I used to weigh 90 pounds more than I do today. I returned to college a few years ago, and every time I picked up a book, I picked up cookies and milk to go with it. The book was an automatic trigger. It was absolutely automatic to go and get something to go with the book. The book never went by itself. It always had cookies and milk to go along with it. I know that, but we wanted to go someplace different this year. I also found that getting off the phone compromise.
And being upset is an automatic trigger to go to the refrigerator. Automatic.
Yeah, well, I know you're not feeling good, and I know you need to go.
She's going to the neatest camp up in
When our group, my social group, got together, it was always for eating. It was always, what are you having?
Oh, Shirley, look what
So each one had to outdo the other one, and you get a lot of recognition from people telling you that, oh, what you cooked was just delicious, oh, it's so sinful. And so you get this wonderful reputation, and you just have to live up to it.
Well, I promised to give you the recipe.
After you've kept records for a week, you're ready to set objectives. Now, these are not general goals like, I want to lose weight or I plan to quit smoking. They're specific objectives.
This week, I will only have 1,200 calories a day, which I will keep track of, and I will exercise a minimum of an hour 3 times a week.
Lori, what are you going to do this week?
This week I want to walk at least for an hour, like on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Do you think you can make it?
Sure, I can.
By now, you've accomplished a lot. You've increased your motivation, kept records, and set specific objectives. You're ready to take action. Begin by breaking the connections between the powerful triggers in your environment and the behavior you want to change.
I'm trying to spend time away from the places I usually smoke. That's why I'm out here on my break taking a walk instead of inside in the staff lounge where there's a lot of smoking usually.
Instead of removing yourself from the environment where the triggers occur, you can also remove the triggers. Another way to break the connection is to confine your eating or drinking or smoking to a limited area.
I decided to confine all my eating to one place, this dining room table and this chair, so that I wouldn't find myself eating in the garage, while gardening, while reading, or at the kitchen sink.
Another major group of techniques involves substituting a competing behavior for the habit you're trying to break.
I work in the construction business, and every day after work, I found myself drinking beer with the guys. I've automatically cut back a couple of beers a day by getting back into basketball.
You might also get past an urge by playing a game of tennis, taking a dip in the pool, doing a few calisthenics, stretching, polishing your glasses, knitting, doodling, chewing a piece of gum, drinking a glass of water, or even singing in the shower.
Ain't nothing heaven, serving my love for you.
In short, anything that takes your mind off a craving or makes time go faster. Another whole approach to the idea of competing behavior is to learn a technique for deep relaxation.
One of the reasons I smoke is that I thought I needed cigarettes to be able to cope with stress.
George, I need that Project 170 report right away.
Now I have found other things that can replace smoking. One of them is the deep breathing exercises that I use during my non-smoking class. I start by relaxing my muscles in my neck and shoulders, then putting my hand over my stomach so that I could feel my breathing, taking a deep breath for the count of 8, holding my breath for a count of 4, then exhaling, and repeating this sequence until I felt fully relaxed.
The behaviors that make up a habit are usually quite complex. They involve a series of events called a behavior chain. Consider, for example, all the links in the eating chain. You plan what you're going to buy at the store. You shop. You put the food away at home. You get it back out and prepare it. You snack while preparing it. You serve the food, eat the food, and finally, if you're like most of us, you eat some more. If you can consciously interrupt, stretch out, or in any way control your behavior at points along the chain, your chances of breaking the overall habit are better. For example, in this first link of the eating chain, you can exercise some control by planning a low-fat, low-calorie menu for the entire week. Then stick with that list to block impulse buying when you go shopping. You may do better if you don't shop when you're tired or hungry. If you don't bring it home, you can't eat it. You've broken the chain at this link. When you do get home, stretch out the chain at this point by storing some of the snack foods in inaccessible places like the basement or garage. Just put one soda in the refrigerator at a time. When preparing meals, don't eat. Make a contract with yourself to wait until the food is on the table. Now, there are a lot of little ways you can stretch out the chain while you actually eat.
In order to slow down my eating, I take smaller bites, I put my fork down between bites, and I talk more while I'm eating.
Now, behavior change shouldn't be all work. Plan for some fun. When you succeed at any of these techniques, give yourself a reward and be sure and choose something that's important to you.
Well, the greatest reward for me really is just being able to roll back over and sleep for another hour or so some Sunday morning.
For me, it's time to myself.
I like to go out to lunch.
I like to buy new clothes.
I just like to get together with friends.
Go fishing.
Take small vacations.
Go to a record store, buy a record.
And I love it when someone else does my hair.
To work best, rewards have to be prompt and reliable. Prompt means you don't wait until the weekend to reward yourself for something you did on Monday.
The daily reward that I like to give myself is time, free time to myself, during which I relax by gardening and playing the piano.
Sometimes the reward that would mean most to us is too big to get every day or even to afford every week. In such cases, we can make those rewards still prompt and reliable by breaking them down through a point system.
For every hour that I walk, I'm going to put $1 in a jar, and when I reach the $50 mark, I'm going to go and buy myself a new outfit.
Just as it's helpful to break down a large reward into small ones, it's equally important to break down a large, overwhelming task, like getting into the habit of regular exercise, into a series of small steps.
I started out waddling around the neighborhood. I didn't like that much because everybody else was jogging past me. So I came inside, turned on the TV, and did exercise with one of those shows. 10 minutes wore me out. But when I finally worked up to an hour, I went down and joined the program at the Y. I worked pretty hard, literally from the back of the room to the front. And pretty soon I worked up to 20 minutes, and by the time I got up to an hour, I had lost enough weight and I had gotten strong enough to keep up with most of what was going on in the class.
You can also use your imagination as a tool for changing habits.
You've learned your habits through thousands of repetitions. For example, if you sit down to 3 meals a day plus a couple of snacks, you've eaten over 9,125 times in the last 5 years. By the same token, to unlearn an old habit, you have to practice the new one. You can speed this along by practicing in your imagination. Mentally rehearse how you want to behave and how you're going to cope with temptations or other difficult situations.
There are still some situations that trigger my craving to smoke. Freeway traffic during the rush hour, deadlines at work, and a very common one is the time right after a meal, when sometimes I feel a real strong urge to smoke. What I do to cope with these situations is imagine ahead of time what I would do if I were to find myself in any one of them. And I picture myself pushing away from the table and going into the next room to play the piano. I think I'll go and play the piano. That'll relax me.
Finally, the last technique that we're going to talk about in our method for changing habits is social support. And it is without a doubt one of the most important.
Because that one is
Without support from someone, it could be a group like this, or family, or friends, your chances of changing permanently are really slim. This group of people have gotten together to improve the quality of their lives through through regular exercise and social interaction.
These groups are very effective because they intensify the forces that bring about behavioral change. For example, positive reinforcement.
Vern Young, we have an award for you. Congratulations on walking 31 miles. That's excellent.
Thank you very much. You all helped me do it.
You don't have to join a formal group to get help from other people. It makes a big difference to simply tell the people around you what you're trying to do. Your friends, roommates, co-workers, and most especially your family.
You also may have to ask for support to help you avoid that temptation at every turn. Another way to build social support into your program is to form a buddy system. Make a pact with someone who shares your goals. You see a lot of people walking or running at 5:45 in the morning who would never be there if they hadn't agreed to meet some other person. Set it up so you both have to succeed to get your rewards.
Now, let's say that you haven't had a cigarette for a month, or you've lost 20 pounds, or you've been faithfully swimming 3 days a week all summer long. You should feel good about your accomplishment. The most difficult part is behind you. But there's still a challenge ahead. That is, to maintain your new behavior.
Okay, Melanie, we better get on with the vote. How do you vote?
Not guilty.
I was rolling along okay because everything was routine.
Man is guilty.
But then I was called to jury duty, and that turned out to be pretty stressful. By the end of the second day of deliberations, there was one holdout who insisted that the accused was guilty. The discussion became quite heated.
We've been through this for 2 days.
And I was a bundle of nerves. And I don't know when it happened exactly, but before I knew it, there I was with a cigarette half smoked. I don't even remember picking it up. Well, here I was smoking again for a period of about a week. But then I started thinking to myself, I'm not going to let this beat me. A slip isn't the end of the world. I don't think that it should be considered a catastrophe because you can always start over again, and by practicing the coping techniques that you practice during the process of quitting, you can still become a non-smoker.
Your chances of permanently quitting smoking, losing weight, changing your drinking habits, learning to relax, or sticking with an exercise program are not really very good if you hope to succeed on willpower alone. But the odds go way up if you learn and practice the key skills we've talked about in this film. This is change by doing, permanent change, and it takes work. We've learned to live largely by accident, but we must change by design. We must take the responsibility of living by choice rather than chance.
To me, exercise before was cleaning the house, and that's all I did. And then I just decided, listen, you know, you've got to start looking after yourself too. And I feel now that my priority for the day is to get out and exercise.
It's not that difficult to change. When I exercise, I feel firm and toned up, even though I'm carrying the extra weight. It doesn't feel like it's bouncing 2 miles behind me when I walk.
A year ago, I never thought I would be able to stop smoking. Now that I have, my self-image is beginning to change. Now I'm beginning to see myself as a non-smoker. After 40 years of smoking, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
I had been overweight for at least 40 years of my life, since I was a very little girl, and never thought that I was going to change. And I tried the things that most people try who are overweight. It didn't work. And it didn't work because you could lose a little weight, but you always gained back more. And why did you gain back more? Because you didn't learn anything about what you were doing that got you in that position in the first place. You just lost weight. You didn't change any behavior. All I can say now is that I just feel so powerful that I did it. I accomplished something for me that I was the only one that could do it. Nobody else could do this for me. And a certain amount of power and strength that you feel that I did this not all by myself. I certainly had a lot of support, but nobody kept my fingers out of my mouth but me. And that's kind of a powerful feeling.